Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Hope everyone is doing well, inshallah. Welcome back to the next episode of Behind The Barakah series, where we uncover the powerful stories behind the campaigns on LaunchGood and the folks that are making it possible. Today, I'm honored to be joined by our beloved sister Shaima, who is a storyteller, a fundraiser, and a LaunchGood brand ambassador. From growing up handing out donation boxes at Islamic relief events to running her own campaigns in honor of her grandmother, to helping nonprofits unlock the stories within their campaigns. Her journey is one of resilience, faith, and the power of storytelling. Shaima, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Sajad.
Welcome. So nice to have you, Sister Shaima. It's, you and I connected. We had conversations before about a few weeks back, and I was really inspired by, mashallah, the spirit of khidmah.
Thank you.
That you and your family have, and how that's kind of helped shaped who you are and your constant giving back to the community, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. I appreciate that. Jazakallah khair. It was a good conversation. I got to learn a lot about you and the work that you've done. So,
Alhamdulillah.
I feel like definitely you're a master in khidmah as well.
Not
Yeah.
at all. Not at all. Far from it. Far from it. But Bismillah. So there's a lot I wanted to talk about, mashallah,
Yeah.
because, based on the stories that you were sharing with me, and I want all the listeners to be able to benefit from that. And
Yeah.
a lot of the lessons that you shared, as you were going through these struggles of life, or as you were just navigating the life, right? And everything that was happening, mashallah, you had this sense of resilience. You have this sense of storytelling, right? And leveraging a lot of these tools to be able to create that bigger impact. But where I want to start is way back.
Okay. Okay.
So you, mashallah, grew up in a household where fundraising was very present and an active part of life from the get-go, from a very, very young age.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what it was like helping your parents when they were assisting with Islamic relief and kind of being around that environment of khidmah?
Yeah. So, I mean, those convention days when you're a kid, there was no such thing as social media, so we had to be creative. But yes, I just remember honestly growing up, my dad, he did a lot of the development stuff and the fundraising. So we would go to all these conventions all over Canada and the US. And he would always have like his set up his table and such. And I'll have a little sanduq or the brochures to give out. And the brochures are one of those with the pledge forms in it. But no one's really going to say no to like a little kid, right? So it used to be a thing of like initially like, how quickly could I give away those brochures and like I'll be competing with my twin brother, or like other
Exactly.
friends that he endorsed us to give out and see who give it out first. Yeah, so stuff like that. Or every time grabbing the box and like going up to someone, oh, like can you please like give to whatever important cause that we were raising at that time. I don't recall honestly, but yeah, you'll see somebody put in like $1 or $2 or 5 or 10. I'm like, I'll be like super excited. I'm like, look, and then like it's like it was kind of like you could say like Sabiquna fil Khairat, but like kids edition, like we're
Yeah.
kind of competing for goodness. Yeah, so that's kind of how like I used to remember fundraising and like when that at that time. But I know it segued later on as well. Like when I grew older, it was more like fundraising dinners at the masjid. So we would like walk around with the sanduq as well. The sanduq has been, I think, the OG, you know, um, like bank or the place that used to process payments, I guess you could say. That was like where everything was initially. So yeah, I think being
Yeah.
the Sadduq was how we started out. It was like that. And then after it paved path to
It's
the
evolved over
camping and
time.
yeah, the more
Right.
technical, yeah.
Social media, text to
Social media.
donate, launch good
Yeah.
campaigns. Now it's like sky's the
Yeah.
limit.
Sky's the limit.
But
Exactly. Yeah.
mashallah, it's very beautiful to see, like even just growing up in that household
Yeah.
where
Alhamdulillah.
it's, because like everyone's struggling. Everyone,
Mhm.
I'm sure, even growing up at that time, there's day-to-day struggles that every family goes through. But in spite of all that, maintaining that spirit of there's people that have even more less than us,
Mhm.
right? There's people that don't have food on their table.
Yeah.
Just embodying that spirit of giving, that khidmah,
Yeah.
regardless of your own personal situations. Everyone has their own personal situations in life, but I think it's very beautiful to
Yeah.
have that growing up, because I think, I mean, assuming that kind of helped shaped who you are, because now
Yeah.
you, mashallah, we're going to get into all the
Mm,
amazing LaunchGood campaigns that you've done too over the past so many years. But
mhm,
it's like you see that, like
mhm.
the fruits of that is still growing.
Instilled. I think being
Exactly.
a child of like immigrant parents, okay, especially Algerians, I feel like it's kind of the same in any honestly culture because I have friends also who are first generation Canadians as well. Um, a lot of the times you see your parents work really hard, you know? And so it's like they worked really, really hard and they were really striving and struggling. And mind you, we didn't have it like all together all the time, but that also never stopped from still showing up in whatever job that you did fully with that son. I think that's one thing I would say about like um any immigrant parent, even my parents included, that I think that sense of like hard work, essence, showing up fully, is something that's I think like ingrained in their DNA, you know?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. So whenever we're in the house and we don't want to finish our I know when I was growing up I didn't like onions. I have a different opinion of them now, but when growing up, especially when they were like I thought they were like clear looking worms and they like fucking onions, I just couldn't. And garlic when they weren't like super minced and they were kind of like little. Anyways, I used to, and yeah, so that used to be a big thing. And my parents would be like, we worked so hard for da da da. There's people out there. You saw like those endless brochures, and I'm like, I know. I don't. Oh yeah, I can't eat this thing. So yeah, but I mean, I think the moral of the story is that despite their being able to serve others and they weren't exactly, balling themselves, they always used to tell us how hard they were working for us and how we shouldn't take the efforts that they were doing for granted, and
Absolutely.
that other
Yeah.
people, like what you're, it's always be like, oh, that onion that you're complaining about, somebody else is making dua to Allah for that onion, And I'm like, oh,
Absolutely.
why not? I know you feel
Yeah.
bad about it, but you're like, I know, but it's just like, it was hard, honestly. Sometimes it's like, I get it, but I think that was one of the things that you're just constantly raised with that narrative inside and outside, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a beautiful reminder too, because like as as we're raising kids here in the
Yeah.
West, it's very important to have that aspect part of their life.
Yeah.
That they're kind of thinking about the spirit of khidmah and helping people as well, inshallah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
I think
sure.
that's good. Um, the other thing I wanted to kind of talk about too was I know from our earlier conversation you were mentioning that your mom and your grandmother they really
Mm.
shaped your story. They really
Mm.
shaped to who you've become, mashallah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
is there anything we can talk about on that side, or anything you would like love to mention?
Oh my gosh. So I don't even know where to start that because, okay, so my mom, eventually she became a single mom. She had to raise four kids on her own. And a little bit of a background, she was actually a physician in Algeria, so she was a doctor. So seeing her struggle here, like, was really, definitely a challenge. I don't think I've ever seen anybody work as hard as my mom, honest to God. Like, I don't
Mm,
even think, if there was ever even something that I wish I had, like, gotten more of was, like, her incredible discipline, especially when it came to, like, knowledge and stuff. Like, she was very studious and very judicious with it as well. But like it was like it's hard to see someone like work so hard to get to a goal in their life, become a physician, and then that gets redacted in a way that's like completely like you would never imagine. And then for the rest of like
mm,
decades after you're trying to get back on your feet, but there's always been some kind of challenge after another. Um, so for me, like seeing her strive definitely informed and set the bar for myself going through being a single mom myself, but like I don't have four kids. I have one, but it's still very hard. Like, I always think about how my mom never gave up. And then in turn, it also makes me think about my own grandmother, Allah yarhamha, because I come from like when I think about my mom telling me the stories about my grandma and everything like that, and my great grandmother and my grandfather, Allah yarhamah, as well, has been like they were fighters, not just against France, but like against everything. And one of the things I used to always hear is like, for example, like my grandma, she had mashallah 15 kids. Okay. She got married really, really young. And
mashallah.
I'm telling you, despite subhanAllah, like giving birth and through the war and and being such an incredible wife, like honestly to my grandfather, Allah yarhamu, because all his brothers were all shahada all the time. They used to
Mm.
be out there fighting. Maybe we'll call them the couscous, against France, and subhanAllah, like it just some of the stories I hear is just so crazy. Like it's so amazing, makes me so proud to be like his granddaughter, honestly, and to know like what he's done for Algeria to be where it is. And it's one of those things that you can't necessarily tally up, but knowing this, just it's just so amazing. Like I just come to realize like they were super resourceful. They didn't have much, but Allah put barakah in so much that they did, like in their ideas and
Mm.
their thought process and how they collaborated, even with the
Yeah.
neighbors and stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of times my grandma had to raise those kids by herself, even though she was married, yes, but like it was like they each had their own jihad, you know?
Hmm.
My grandfather had his jihad like against the French, and he did that in his own way. And then my grandma did that in her own way to have the kids to take care of and still deal with. It was, I mean, had it like the logistics part of it, it's absolutely insane. I mean, it should be a master class, honestly, a case study, but to just see that like she was such a strong woman, even after my grandfather died alive from like in the late 90s, like she didn't pass away until like 2020 in December, so like it was
Mm.
almost like 20 years that she like lived past my grandfather passing away from him. But hearing her story, hearing even her like her mother-in-law, like how much they were so resourceful. These were people who, by the way, didn't know how to speak or write anything. They didn't know how to read and write. I hear like my grandma can speak French and Arabic fluently. She can read it or write it fluently. She can negotiate like a gangster. Okay, this woman, incredible. Incredible, honestly. And like, I mean, I remember my mom even telling me she was making couscous one time, and like the last child she had, she literally was like, "Oh, water broke," and she just delivered it herself. Put the couscous aside, cut the umbilical cord, wrapped her up, washed her hands, finished the couscous, went to the hospital to get her all checked out. Like it was another day, another dollar. I was like, what kind of? Oh my god, I can't. But I guess once like number
So,
15, you're just like pro. But I don't know. So I think for me, I just draw a lot of my strength from knowing that I come like from a lineage of women that were so strong,
mm.
they weathered whatever storm and their head was held high. And service was never something that like khidma was not even like an option. It was survival. Like that's
Yeah.
how you connected, with your neighbors, with this, like it was absolute survival. It's something that if they had like plants or they grew any vegetables, it was divided up, not just within themselves, but within the community. And so that was always the narrative that I grew up with. And so definitely I would say in my upbringing now, being more in my adulthood, I reflect a lot on that. Whenever I feel like down in the dumps or I feel whatever, like I just kind of just were drawn that as inspiration, like they didn't fight for nothing. I could be out here just like,
That's right.
letting whatever, beat me. So yeah, I would say this is where I draw a lot of my strength and stuff from my mom. I know she got that from her mom and her mom got it from her mom. So yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm very grateful. hmm
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And again, these are like the stories that we hear about of our ancestors, or even
hmm
taking it back to like the times of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Yeah,
and like the challenges that they went through. Like we take things so easily for
yeah,
granted. It's like something as simple as the five daily prayers,
hmm
but like the struggles that they went through to offer those five daily prayers, the persecution they went through,
yeah,
like the torture they went to just to be able to offer that.
yeah.
And here I am, within 3 minutes, I'm done Zohar, right?
That's so true.
And it's like it's a
Yeah.
reminder that like you got to hold on to these things, you got to cherish it.
hmm
'Cause they didn't come easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
Allah.
Which I think why like you value it more,
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely,
The struggle
absolutely.
helps you value the things that you take for granted. And so when it comes to prayer, when you said that, I just thought about that little boy who literally you could see he has a gun, like a bullet, like right in his throat or his neck right there. And he just from the shock of being able to get out of it, he's like, let me pray though. Let's take out the bullet. He's like, God gave me
Mm,
breath so that I could still pray. I don't think he missed Asad or he barely just made it or something, but his thought process was Maghrib. Like he just couldn't
yeah,
even believe like he just survived that. It was wild. Like honestly, you're right. We do take it for granted,
yeah,
100%.
subhanallah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And but just coming back to your grandmother, so mashallah, she lived an amazing life in terms of showing how to live.
Yeah.
this is how you're
Yeah,
supposed to live. And you said, mashallah, subhanallah, she had passed away in the year 2020.
2020. Yeah,
2020. She passed
that was
away in Algeria.
in Algeria. Yeah. Um, my understanding was she fell down the stairs. I think when you're elderly, like in your, I think she was 93, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
She was born in
subhanallah.
1927.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so about, yeah, around that age.
And one of the
Um,
things that Shaima that you did to mashallah
mhm,
honor her legacy is
mhm.
that you wanted to have a well dug up in her name, in her
I wanted a sadaqah jariyah. I didn't know at the time it was going to be a well. I just knew I wanted to do something to pay it forward because I was really, I was really sad about her loss. Like her, because my dream was to go back to Algeria, show her my published book, but I always wanted to write her story because I was just so inspired by it, you know? And unfortunately, I never got to do it directly from her. So I'm gonna have to try to excavate it from my mom. But, um, yeah, so I just wanted to do a Sadaqah Jariyah. I just didn't know what it was. And is it okay if I kind of talk into the story about how that
yeah,
happened?
yeah,
Okay, cool.
of course.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so I used to see this LaunchGood like advertisement on my social media at the time, and I didn't know what it was. I just knew that like something about like people donating money, and it's like a website, and I've seen people like donate things for Sadaqah Jariyah. I always hear Sadaqah Jariyah stuff with LaunchGood, so I was like, okay. So um I started researching them up a little bit, read their story. I was really inspired. I was like, okay, I like this. I really like these people, what they did. And they're from like across this, like the bridge from me, right? I'm like originally from Windsor, right? They're from Detroit. So I just appreciated the struggle that they had to go through to make this accessible for us. And so I was
Mm,
like, okay, cool. So I reached out to them. I actually connected, with, Mohsen and Miriam. And they were the
yeah,
ones, yeah, they were, we're gonna know about Mustin later. He shows up again in the story. But yeah, Mustin, and Mariam, they were the ones that kind of started me like, I'm so sorry about your loss and such. And then they're like, yeah, we'll actually even help you like draft the campaign. Because honestly, when you're going through so much grief and also it's hard to it's hard, like, where do you begin? Where do you end? How do I even put this together?
so,
And then also like the nature of like, you're trying to ask people to help contribute funding for a cause. And the only way you've ever seen it how is like that we've spoken about it as well. It kind of gives you a bit of the ick where it's like kind of like shaming
mhm,
and it's like if you look, you're
mhm,
begging, et cetera, and you're like, oh my God, but I also really want to do this for her. It was like,
yeah,
I really want to do something for her, like, yeah, she had 15 kids. Yeah, she had, mashallah, she had a lot of grandkids as well too, but I'm like, I wanted something for her. She was always somebody that whenever I hear about her, she was always a person that gave. I never forgot of everybody else. I felt like she, in a way, is like a well that always like gave, people she
mm,
always poured out of from, but I just wanted somebody to pour into her. So yeah, in that conversation, I spoke to them like, I just want to do it for the Algeria. I don't know, like, what I should do. Like, there's so many options. And they said to me, like, a well is something that, like, is, water is life, honestly. And it's something that's also, like, not as, like, expensive or as complicated as a masjid or a school. Like, it sometimes take years. It's one of those things
yeah,
that within it, like, it has a very short turnaround. Within 3 to 6 months,
yeah.
you'll be able to have a well that's dug up in a community that's really going to need it. And that's going to end up funding a lot of things in the future, right? So whether it's measured or whatever, there's a source like that water could become a source
Or
of great
something.
things. So I was like, yeah. So I was like, okay. I believe it was around 3,000 Canadian. So it wasn't like a huge amount to me at the time. I was like, oh my God, 3,000. That's crazy. That's a lot of money. So, I, with their help, alhamdulillah, they helped me put the campaign together, put a little bit of a story about my grandma. And then I just started sharing it within my network. They were the ones that told me like the people who are more inclined to give are going to be the people who know you. And then the
Hmm.
people who like your friends know. Right. And
Hmm.
so I remember that's how I started fundraising for the well. And then obviously I have my siblings on Facebook, so they saw this and they were like telling my mom, and then they were super upset. They were super upset, like, oh my gosh, Stop is like begging for a well for our grandma who just passed away. Oh my God, it was so bad. My mom was like obsessed with, oh my God, can you please take it down if you like love me and you like have any respect for like your grandma and myself, just like take it down. I said, okay, I'm like, I know mom, you're upset. Okay. I get it. 100%, but it's not what you think it is. It's like, it's hard to explain because I see her perspective. And when you're saying, hey, it's not what you think it is, or it's like, well, what am I seeing? Am I seeing unicorns? And, obviously I know what I'm seeing and this is embarrassing, et cetera, et cetera. And then my siblings, it was kind of like, this is her mom at the end of the day, so just like respect her wishes. As if
Hmm.
like me, I don't have no stake in this too. Hello, I'm the granddaughter. Yes, I understand. I'm not her daughter. Okay, I understand. But like, I'm impacted too, and this is I don't want to like deal with the situation. But they were just like I guess mortified, and it was just like a very embarrassing, humiliating experience from their perspective. And I had to sit down with my mom and explain, like, Mom, first of all, I'm not even getting the money. They're so great. This LaunchGood people, they even connected me. They gave me like a roster of like nonprofits. They even worked like, I was able to kind of go through each one, and then I made an informed decision. I would decide to go with this company, I was like, I like what they're doing, yada, yada. And, yeah, so I think it was Pi's Project. Yeah, that's who I chose. And, they were also, I felt most affordable. And also they were like, I like the
Hmm.
work that they were doing and they've been doing it for a long time. So, yeah, so I just said, I'm like, I chose them. They even had them on the back end, and it's so great because it's like they just receive it directly. He's gonna help streamline the
Yeah.
conversation, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, so there was such resistance, but I was like, in my head, I'm like, honestly, and I told this to my mom too. I was like, honestly, right now, I'm pretty sure Mima left from her. Mima is effectively grandma. Okay, there's a Mima Fatima. I'm like, I'm pretty sure right now she'd be like, she would stack you up the head. She'd be like, why are you interfering? Well, what I need right now is a tragedia. But in their head, it's like, she did a lot of good things in her life, et cetera, et cetera. She never asked for this. I'm like, yeah, but sometimes you don't know what you need to ask for, It's kind of like when somebody introduces you to like the Vietnamese coconut coffee and you didn't even realize you needed this in your life, And suddenly you're like, oh my God, how did I exist for 30 something years and never knew about this drink, It's really good, guys, by the way. Just side note, it's very good. But that's what I mean. Sometimes we don't know, we realize something. And is there such thing as too much good things, I just,
Yeah.
not to say that her good deeds, mashallah, aren't going to be perpetual, but it's one of those things like, again, the framework, right? So anyways, long story short, alhamdulillah, I would say more than the funds being raised, there was the community of people who were sending beautiful du'as, either through my DMs or like through the comment section or what have
Hmm.
you. And I showed that to my mom. I'm like, these people who are like, who don't even know you or your grandma, or my grandma, sorry. And look how they're like making these beautiful du'as for her, right? I'm like, it's not
Right.
even just like the sadaqah of like the well-being, built, in her name, but just look at that. So subhanAllah, she started to see like people saying beautiful du'as and like just saying really beautiful things and meaningful things. And the funds were getting raised. I think we were past the halfway point. Then, she was like, she started to kind of see it and like the fear, the shame, whatever it was, started to dissipate. And then she started sharing it within her own network, like her own friends and family.
Mm.
And then like my siblings did the same thing. And then I remember my brother too. He was just like, my sister's doing something really great. She's raising, money, for this well. We're partnering up with the Pies Project. We're going to build this well, da da da. And it's fun that we end up raising the money and they did end up building the well. Should I think about it? But, I remember just sending my mom the video. She was on her bed. I came in. I was like, hey, mom, can I talk to you real quick? And she's like, sure. And I was like, so here you go. I sent her, I opened up the video and it just starts like with the beginning and everything. And then she sees this person, with the community of people in like a village. And then she sees her mom's name on the wall. And my mom,
Mm.
so she teared up. They did the in Arabic and in English. And, um, she's like, I remember that moment she said, تستاهل. تستاهل in Arabic means she deserves it. You know, she deserved it.
Mm.
She's like, it was like a reflection about my mom. And she's always been someone that always poured out, and to see this, she's like, she deserves it to have her name there and, what she did
SubhanAllah.
in her life. So SubhanAllah, like, yeah, that's like, that changed actually, like, the dynamic. And as a matter of fact, like, my family always, like, now, whenever they see LaunchGood, they always, like, donate to it because of that moment for them. But yeah, like, it was a very positive experience. For me personally, I had a very positive experience just from, like, the whole process and helping me write a campaign. I didn't know how to write to save my life. Yes, I'm a storyteller. I love to tell stories. But when you're in grief and you're like, I don't know where to begin, where do I end? And how do I write this in a way that's like, structured in the way they're talking about and I know what they're saying. Yeah, it's very helpful. So that was like my positive interaction with LaunchGood, and that was the impact that I had at that time, and I'm very grateful for that. For that. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think one of the beautiful things too, Shama, that you brought up is like, I think like within our communities,
Hmm.
there's like this, I don't want to, maybe stigma or
Yeah.
just misperception that, um, no, we shouldn't do these things.
Mm,
I
yes.
mean, yes, we should do it,
Hmm.
you and everyone wants to support it.
Yeah.
But I think when it happens close to home, it's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. I don't want to ask people for money.
Hmm.
I don't know how it's going to come off,
Hmm.
right? And we lose sight of the ultimate goal of why we're doing it.
And the grander
The
picture.
reason
Hmm.
you did that is because you wanted to have a, inshallah, perpetual
Hmm.
sadaqah jariyah for your grandmother that years from now, anyone that drinks from that
Hmm.
well, she's getting rewarded. Inshallah, you're getting rewarded. But again, like just the beautiful example you gave is that a well is a source of life.
It is.
You know, like
Hmm.
you go back to the story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam
Hmm.
and his son, they moved where the water was. And
Hmm.
then eventually communities were built there.
Yeah,
Masajids were built there. And
that's true.
today is Mecca.
It was for Zenzo. That's
Right?
so
It
beautiful.
was just
So
through a
beautiful.
source of water, through a
Hmm.
source of life. So, yes, it may seem as, oh, it's just a well, but the long-term impact of water
Yeah,
to communities is so pivotal and so instrumental.
it is.
Um, so yeah, but I mean, first and foremost, thank you so much for, tackling that head on as these stigma and some of these challenges come up. And I think it comes up often. And I think like, cause even just reflecting back on moments in my life when people close to
Hmm.
me that passed away, and
Hmm.
there were talks about, building a LaunchGood campaign or a Sadaqah Jariyah campaign, there was always like this hesitation. Oh, I don't know how their family would feel about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. And I think, being able to address that, well, this isn't a financial thing.
Yeah.
This is a Sadaqah Jariyah thing that you're doing for them. So they, inshallah, keep earning rewards year after year after year after they're long gone.
That two things came to mind. I want to be honest with one thing, that there was a moment where I had doubt. And that, especially when I was having that resistance, and the campaign didn't raise money like immediately. It took a little while. I don't know how long, but I would say at least a few weeks for sure. But that was like nerve wracking, And I did question myself. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? And like especially when you're like your mom's upset with you, you're like, oh my God, it's a little upset with me too. But like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what I had to remember my why, you know, had to remember my why. And I don't know, even to this day, I was thinking about like what propelled me, because you overcoming the objection of like, she did so much good in her life. Like, what's to say that those aren't always sadaqah jariyah? You focus on yourself, be better, that's a sadaqah jariyah, etc. Those such of things. You're like, yes, but this is so important. Like, it's just so
Mm.
important. And it's funny because like I said, in the end, my mom was like, "Tastahil," it's one word, but it holds so much weight, she deserves
SubhanAllah.
it. And it was almost as if like a lot of things that she's done in giving has been behind like sitar, but in that moment, it's like she was just honored in that sense, Her,
Mm.
it's kind of like, and I want to talk about, if that's okay with you, the
Of
power
course.
story, because when we really think about the story, we don't look at this is like the story within the story I was talking about. We can look at the
Yeah.
overarching theme and just be like, oh yes, a well was built, somewhere in Africa, a remote village received access to water. That could be it, the end, right? Or we can look at it deeper than that. Okay. We can look at it deeper than that because at the end of the day, anything that we do, right? I'm not to say I'm questioning my grandma's intentions, but you never know. You always hope that whatever khair you do in life, Allah accepts it, right? However dusty it is or however well you fell short, you always hope that Allah would accept it. And Allah, of course, He's the one who's always accepting things, and He's the most appreciative, of course. But there's always that sense of like humility as a human being that you always hope that whatever you do, Allah can accept it. Number one. Number two, there's no such thing as that. Well, could be the difference between her like one tier less than Al Firdaus and now Al Firdaus. Allah, I'm not saying that she wasn't worthy of Al Firdaus beforehand. Again, I'm not saying that, but we don't know what
You
is
never
that
know. You
exactly.
never.
And even if let's say we take all of that out of the picture, right? What the spirit of her life was giving, like that was her legacy. And in doing so, that what became like kind of like the proverbial heirloom that became the thing that other people were benefiting from and remembered her for. That was like her legacy of giving. And this source of, well, if you look at it, it provided jobs for people to go build that well. It supported, a community. They saw that the well was getting built. Their excitement, their joy, their gratitude to Allah, like the du'as that were being made by other people just in
Mm.
condolence and in gratitude. To this day, we don't know that people are still not making dua or not so grateful for this water. you know?
Oh,
This water could have been life or death for somebody, you know? And
absolutely.
it's so sometimes like it's really like it's like the gift that keeps on giving. It's not just
Yeah,
the well, it's what the well represents in the end, you know? And
absolutely.
what so much just even before the well was built, how much great things came from that. Just from the du'as and like the now somebody's gonna get hired. Somebody who probably started a business
Mm,
to do this thing back because when you work with other nonprofits leaders and they're building wells, you see they have partners that they have down there, and it's usually somebody that's local to the community, and
yeah.
that's their bread and butter. And then they're hiring people from their own community, and so like it sustains them too, and it dignifies them. They're able to
Hmm.
provide, but with the work that they do, you know. And so it's something that like is immeasurable. If I start to but the idea was just to give a little bit of insight, but just to think
Yeah,
about it, it's almost immeasurable the impact. And this is just like what I could conceptualize. I'm sure there's so much more that I'm not even conceptualizing. And all of that becomes an ujr. And then whatever good that you lead somebody else to do, right? You get the reward of that too. So it's like
absolutely.
commission on crack, honestly. So it's not even about just the well, but like the well becomes something that's so much grander than that. And I can't think of a greater gift that you can give somebody that did so much for you, you know? And so
When
I
you
just
think
wanted to
about it,
share that.
it's
Yeah.
5 years later,
Hmm.
after your grandmother passed
Yeah.
away, we're
Yeah.
having this conversation about a well
Yeah.
and the well that was built in her honor. And inshallah,
Yeah.
this will inspire other people to build wells or create
Inshallah.
sadaqah
Yeah.
jariyah projects for
Yeah.
their loved ones. And
Yeah.
inshallah, this all goes back to your grandmother. This
Inshallah.
her
I really
granddaughter
pray
had
that.
this conversation.
Yeah.
So it's very beautiful
Yeah.
how everything works and how Allah, connects everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but if I may shift gears a little bit, because I know we're
Yes,
talking
please.
about storytelling, and there was a story that I really was amazed at when you were telling me last time.
Okay.
It was the story of Radio Shack.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about
Radio
that
Shack.
story.
Okay. So, oh my gosh. Okay. So Radio Shack, for those who or I feel like it shows my age a bit, but yeah, honestly, like it's like back in the day thing. I grew up seeing it called Radio Shack until they rebranded it
Yeah.
and called it The Source, and I was like, "What's The Source?" I thought this was Radio Shack, and then when I walked in, they're like, "It's still Radio Shack. It just got bought out by Bell, and now it's rebranded as The Source." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. That's very interesting." And I remember going in because I wanted to get a pair of headphones, and my friend was at the dollar store like next door. And I just walked in, it was only the manager. So I came in and I was, oh, like, is this just you? I'm like, it's really empty here. And he's like, yeah, it's just me working today. I was like, oh, okay, well, if it's so empty, maybe you should hire me because, like, be nice to have more employees or whatever. And he's like, actually, we are hiring. Do you have do you have any experience in like customer service? I'm like, does being a customer count? Because I don't have like a job, like experience, But I'm like, that's the thing that every job asks is for job experience. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to get this experience if no one wants to give me the job to get the
Exactly.
experience to begin with? And so, I just want to like, listen, I know what it's like to be a customer, and I sure as hell know what it's like to be a customer that's a female and Muslim, and walking into the Future Shop and like the Best Buys and the Radio Shacks of that time, And it's not the most pleasant experience to say the least. A lot of the
Yeah.
time your vulnerability and your ignorance is weaponized against you. People say that ignorance is a bliss, but honestly, I think it's a blister. I think somebody put off the sentence somewhere because it really is. It's a pain because then later on you end up like finding something that wasn't necessarily great. You can't return it now because it's like already your thing. It's not working, and it's just like it's horrible. So I told him like I know what it's like to not get the best service, and I would love to have that opportunity to change that. And I said, although I don't have, necessarily the experience that you guys may require or the technical knowledge, what I do have is a thirst and curiosity to learn. And I'm pretty sure
Mm.
once I learn it, I'll be able to implement it. So
Yeah.
that's how I got that job. Alhamdulillah. I remember the interview. One thing I said to him, like, listen, long story short, we have 90-day probationary period for a reason, okay? I may not like it. I might dip. You might not like it, and then you might let me go. Or we might both like it and it'll become a happy thing. So I'm like, it's not like you're paying me out of your own pocket. It's like a multi-billion-dollar like
Yeah.
conglomerate that's paying, for my paycheck. So anyways, that's how I started. I didn't know anything. People used to always like focus more on like the phone sales and stuff like that because that's where the commission was. I was always tasked with like putting stuff away from like shipment, which actually it played as a good thing because first I knew where everything was. And second of all, as I'm putting it away, I'm like, what is this thing? What is this thing called a diode? Okay, let me put it up, like and Google it when I go home or whatever the case may be. Or ask someone when they actually have time to answer. So that's how like I like learn things organically. Also my manager, like he was actually a very good teacher. I do have to say that. Like other things aside, like, he was really great at teaching, mashallah. Apparently he had like a chemistry background in teaching, but when he came here to Canada, he found himself as a manager. I'm sure his story is much longer than that, but that's what I recall. But he was very good at teaching and conceptualizing things and explaining things, like, and it worked for me, honestly. So, alhamdulillah. So, um, I mean, that's how I got in there. I don't know if you want to say something, Sujad.
No. That's a beautiful story because it's just
Yeah,
like seizing the moment, you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
very funny as you were mentioning that.
yeah,
And you also mentioned to me last time, I know you're being
mhm,
humble right now, but you climbed up the ranks and you became the number one
yeah.
sales associate in Canada?
Yes, I was naturally multiple times actually. So
Mashallah.
that was pretty cool because so I'll tell you what happened. Okay, so I moved from Ontario to Alberta, and it was really north. Like it's called Fort McMurray. My mom used to call it Fort McFlurry. So I don't think parents, I don't think parents always butcher like. My mom used to call Canada Dry, like the ginger ale, like Canadian Tire, which is like the Canadian Home Depot. Like it was just everything. She used to, anyways, yeah, that's what she used to call it. But anyways, because she remembered McFlurries from McDonald's. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, I was living there. It's a very male dominated city or town, I guess you could say, because a lot of people that go there is for like the oil industry, oil and gas. Um, I think the ratio was like 10-1 when it came to like men to women. Like
Mm,
that's how male centric it was. And then you go after the fact that you're in a male centric position. It was very interesting, but what that means is it's very competitive and you obviously are the underdogs, not just as being a female, but as being a Muslim
mhm,
female. But I
mhm.
honestly, what I did was I just leveraged just the power of storytelling. I didn't even realize it at the time, but like it really was just that humanizing the interaction and really just providing solutions, understanding the problem and then
Oh,
understanding their story and then seeing if we can provide that solution for them, and that always sells, even when I used to train like my colleagues and stuff, I used to always tell them if your customer comes in and you look at them as a dollar sign, they're going to sense it. You know, your job isn't to make a sale today. You might make a sale in 3 months, and I'm like, it might be in 4 months. It could be whatever. The idea is that the customer comes in. Your job is to make sure that they have the best experience and that they walked out informed, whether they are
mm,
informed of your promotions or services and they choose to not go forward with it today,
mhm.
or they are informed and they do end up buying something. Because nothing is worse than a customer leaving and they didn't know about a deal that they could have gotten, and then they're like, well, I didn't know, and I feel like I missed out, and that's not a good
Yeah.
conversation. I'm like, so that's, yeah, number one. Number two thing that I learned is a lot of the times when a customer, I used to be so fearful of rejection, by the way. I still do sometimes, but like rejection usually, like when you're coming from very humble beginnings, okay, usually means I don't care. Okay. I don't care. I don't care what you, I don't care what whatever your situation. There's a lot of shaming to it. But I've come to learn that no really means I don't know. Okay. And what I mean by that is they don't really know what they're saying no to. Sometimes you're just saying no to whatever is so if you say, oh, hey, who's your cell phone provider? They're like, no. I'm like, no, for what? I thought your cell phone provider is. I already have one. I'm taking care of. I'm like, okay, I see. But I also noticed that your phone is smashed or cracked. I don't know if you're aware, but we actually, like do cell phone oh, I didn't know you guys do that, but I was going to go to bell down down the hall to do whatever. And I'm like, well, I can assist you. I'm like, are you like, he's like, well, you can't because I'm a business owner, for example. Well, I'm like, well, did you know that we could do business accounts here too? And as a matter of fact, we have XYZ gift cards and that you wouldn't get at this because I did my research already. I already know what the product offerings are. Okay. I'm like, and then you can use that to actually, before I ring you up, apply to that thing that you wanted to buy. Let's say it was like a stereo system or whatever the case may be. And now
Yeah.
they're like, that no turns into, I didn't know there was all these things that were happening, et
Mm,
cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean. Sometimes people say no to what they think you're
mm.
presenting, and it's your job to basically let them know what that is, and then they can make an informed decision after that. So, long story
And I
short,
think,
yeah, I did actually hit those numbers. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just going to add to that to start to cut you
Hmm.
off is I think the also beautiful thing is, being inquisitive, like
Hmm.
digging deeper, finding out, well, what's the story behind the story?
It is.
like you
Exactly.
mentioned. And one point that really resonated with me the most was like when you were telling me about I believe it was a fellowship that you did at LaunchGood in
Yes.
I think it was Ramadan with Muhsin.
It wasn't Masid. He comes back in the story.
Coming up in our story again.
He's a gangster,
But,
guys.
but there was a story that you were telling me about. If you could talk about the story as well about the Nigerian sister who was doing
Yes.
surgeries and she was raising funds for that, and how you really
Yeah.
helped her kind of crack the campaign by
Yeah.
what's the story behind the story.
Story. Yeah. So that's one thing I took from my sales background into fundraising is that a lot of times no is I don't know. And
Hmm.
their no doesn't mean that they don't care. It comes off that way, unfortunately, because there's really a miscommunication going on.
Yeah.
And really what's the word I'm looking for? In the way you frame your ask, you want to frame it in a way that basically touches the story that's already in the giver's heart, you know? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So I was virtually shadowing Mustin, my business development fellowship, and he had like a roster of clients that day. And I remember one of them was the sister, her name was Sister Fatima, and she has an organization. I don't want to butcher it. I think it's HBF or something like that. I don't recall the name, but I'll find it for you, inshallah. Um, so was this was her second time on LaunchGood, and the year before, she didn't raise as much, and she was feeling a bit frustrated with the whole process, and she wanted to find out different strategies she can go about with like raising funds this year. And she's a small organization, like it's just herself pretty much running the show outside of like who she has as partners like in Nigeria. And she was talking about how like she wanted to basically, it was very surgical in nature, no pun intended, but like very like, okay, my goal is to have X amount of surgeries for these girls. They're really in need of it. And these support packages, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very technical,
Very
very
technical.
factual. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all I know is that I can see this woman cares so much about this thing. And I couldn't understand even what the surgery was about. Honestly, there was this medical term getting thrown around, and it was also to do with like a woman's reproductive system. So there's already a lot of taboos around that. You already feel haram in the conversation, even though those are haram being discussed. But it's just, again, the taboos that we frame, the shames that we put around things. And
Hmm.
so I remember like, as a call was going on, I asked my son, I was like, my son, is it okay if I interject? And I'm supposed to be a shadow. Shadows don't talk, right? But but my
Well, that's why
but
Muhsin.
yeah, exactly. And Musk is honestly great. Like honestly, he was one of the best like managers I've ever worked under. He's the kind of guy that like empowers you to just like he just knows how to bring out your potential. He's like, you know what, Shaimaa, go ahead. Even though I was in UB Little Fellowship, he never looked at me as that. I swear, he always looked at me as an equal. And he's like, sure, you know. So I asked the sister. I said, sister, I want to ask you something. Okay, I said, ask you two things. Number one, it's gonna be personal. But number two, like it's important. You're gonna understand why I asked. I'm like, have you been afflicted with this condition? And she was so off. She's like, no, I've never been afflicted with this condition. I was like, okay. I'm like, the reason I asked is because I'm like, sometimes it could be a personal story. Like you're personally afflicted with this, and it's so deeply meaningful that people understand this that like it's so like it's so detrimental. Like like it's something that's personal, and we can wrap the story around that and why that basically was the source of why you started this whole campaign, right? And this whole company nonprofit, to
Yeah.
help these women. But she said, no, but I feel for these girls. And then she talked about, I think her help, like her house help in Nigeria. I think one time when she was visiting, I don't know if she mentioned it in passing or she had to excuse herself because she had to go help some lady down the street in their village and who had this thing. And when she came across it, she understood, she was absolutely horrified. And she's like, I need to do something about this. And she started this nonprofit. Okay. But I'm like, subhanAllah, this is honestly a masterclass in walking in someone's shoes, even when you don't walk in them, because this woman really exuded empathy. Okay, second thing I told her, I'm like, okay, I'm like, you always want to answer two questions in the donor's mind. Why you and why now? Why this cause? Like, so these are the three things you really want to answer. And in her story, I was like, why is this so meaningful? I'm like, 'cause there's a lot of medical terms you're throwing around, and I'm sorry, I'm like, I don't know what this means. But I'm like, and I'm sure if I don't know it, other people don't know it too, you know? And so I wanted to understand what the story was. So then she's telling me the story. Oh my God, it was so crazy. Basically, long story short, it can happen to any woman, but some of the biggest demographic that gets afflicted with this are child brides. You're talking about girls who are 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. They're getting married off to some 70-year-old in the village as a third wife or fourth wife. The family basically sells them off. And I would say sells them off because her mahar is never for her, it's for the family. It's kind of like she's just looked at as an asset, as a way for their family to be able to no longer have to take care of her. They're already impoverished. It's very hard for them to take care of her. But then at the same time, they make whatever money that they get from the guy, the dowry, right? And then that's what they see. So you have a little girl who barely just had a period and doesn't even know what that is. Doesn't understand the pains and afflictions that comes with it. Next thing you know, she's with this old guy, probably older than her dad. And like, he basically gets her pregnant, and now she's a child carrying a child. And the condition basically is this: when she gives birth, the baby gets stuck in the pelvis basically and is not able to move. And the only way out is a C-section. That's the only way. So basically, because the baby is there and they're telling her to push, the because the pressure is there for sometimes even days, the um basically the vaginal canal, like it goes through necrosis. That area has no blood flow, and so it punctures a hole. Okay. And sometimes women can have two holes, and that could either get the bladder to basically always just urinate without her controlling it. It'll come through that. Or if it's through her colon, it'll be defecation. The baby dies through suffocation. And that child, if she's even lucky that she survives that, she ends up living with this condition. And a lot of the times she's told that she's a witch, or she's like this weird person, or she gets kicked out. People look at her weird. And there's also other stigmas around the village as well. Like if you're not a real woman if you go to a hospital to give birth. So it
Mm.
was horrific when she actually sat down and explained what this condition was, and more so how this condition is so avoidable. It's not something that you're born with, no pun intended. Like it's something that can be avoided because of like
Yeah.
these cultural constructs and social constructs. Um, I remember by the time she told me how this, now I understood her frustration, why she was so frustrated. This is such an unavoidable issue, you know? Or sometimes the man does want to take his wife to the hospital, but like he's not able to financially allow it. Like he's not able to financially provide. So these girls or these women sometimes suffer, and the shame and all that. What she was trying to do was solve this very simple thing. Like if she had this and immediately, like they had C-section, the baby would have been alive. The mother would have had better care. And surgically, they would have been able to repair those tiny tears. This little tiny tear is ruining this girl's life. Literally, she won't be able to control herself. There's no access to clean water to clean herself constantly. People are looking at you like you're a witch or you're something that's like horrible and like blasphemous, and you're ostracized. Like and then you're there to fend for yourself against the
Mm.
elements. And it's a horrible story. And that's the story within the story. And I'm like, I told her, I'm like, let me tell you something. No one likes stories of a dead baby and a dead mom, especially if that mom is a child herself. I'll tell you that right now. Like, I'm emotional just hearing the story. And, I told him, like, and that's where the story needs to be. I'm like, people need to
Mm.
understand that this condition is avoidable and it's ruining these girls' lives. And what you're trying to do is not only just restore their dignity. When you're saying we want to do these surgeries to restore dignity, I don't know what that means. But now when I know that's a simple tear that's ruining this woman's life and it's causing her all kinds of infections, and she could sometimes even die of this condition, when it's
Yeah.
so simple to solve it and it costs a couple $100, it changes completely, completely, you know, and then to know that you're later on providing them the psychological help, and you're helping them heal from that process, and then you're empowering them and dignifying them by teaching them how to sew or how to basket weave or how to make jewelry or how to make pottery, whatever their passion is, and you're teaching them this and then providing them with the tools to do that. So then now she can start making her own business and be able to re-empower herself for a few $100. I'm like, yeah, that's so, like, that's nothing. You know, when you think of a few $100s and for a few $100, the way you're going to look at it now is a value. For you, that few $100 means nothing, but to this person literally means life or death. you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's something that's so tangible. It's something that like is, you know, that you sponsor that surgery or you sponsor, even her package, let's say that thing's like a thousand that does everything. You're like,
Yes.
for $1,000, I can change this woman's life, give her a surgery, psychological help, and she can like learn how to like earn her own bread. It changes the value completely. And I was just kind of, well, so once I told her about that, she actually went and reframed the actual campaign, and she did raise actually a lot more that year, you know? And then
Mm.
she was very happy. And she did go to Nigeria. She did do a documentary. So she did everything that she promised she would do in that campaign. And I remember even after my call with her and Mustin called me and he was personally moved by that story, you know? And so, and it touched him deeply, you know? So he's like, I would have had no idea. Like, honestly. And it's like, it really changed the framework, you know? And that's what I mean. Like, that's the story that was written on my heart. And even if I wasn't a mom at the time when I heard the story, it still would have hurt me as a
Absolutely.
woman. It's a personal story, right? I know what it's like to have like, you know, painful menstrual cramps and having shame around all these things and et cetera, et cetera. Like this is a story that would hit anybody, you know, and a lot of people would give if they knew about it. And so that's what I mean. I'm just so grateful that I was a part of that, even though it was a very small contribution. But to me, I'm just so grateful because giving and asking is very important because this ask wasn't asking for money. It was asking for community. It was asking for
Mm.
connection and it was asking me to be a part of change,
Yeah.
whatever that meant, whether it's through a dollar donation or through like helping frame a story. It could change that person's life, you know? And yeah, that's the story for that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as you're mentioning that, just like I'm just
Mhm.
reflecting on the power of stories. And I
Oh
think a
yeah.
lot of organizations, specifically nonprofits, one of the
Mhm.
challenges that we make often is that
Yeah.
we focus so much on facts and figures.
Yeah.
Oh, help us because we can do XYZ. We've
Yeah.
given 1.2 million food
hmm
hampers. We've
hmm
given, we built XYZ, right? But like we lose the element of storytelling.
We lose the element of connection
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
there is a difference so the way so there's a story arc that's pretty prevalent in our community, right? The struggle, then there's the hope, right? And
Uh,
that's where it is, right? And then everybody else is looked at as a cash cow, right? It's
yes.
so disconnecting. There's a shame to it, and that's what shame is.
Lock
Brandon
the
Brown,
door. Don't let anyone out.
yeah. Oh my God, Sajad. I was telling Sajad how like one of the things that stresses me out the most and gives me the ick, honestly, is like in those fundraiser dinners, especially in Ramadan, and when you're in Alberta and it's like you're fasting for 20 million hours a day, and you can smell like the tabbouleh and like the chicken and the rice. You're like, we're holding the iftar hostage, you know? And that already went 10 minutes ago, and everyone's like, hey, if we don't get this amount, we're not gonna eat. And you're like, no. What if we're all collectively broke and we don't have it? I don't know. Like, what are we gonna do? Like starve? So bad. Anyways. Or I want to give in private, you know, whatever, you know, the reason
Yeah.
is. And that's what it is. I feel like the person is looked at as a cash cow. It's almost like an expectation, an obligation, and then they feel used. And I know like, it's like, well, it's your problem because of the way you're thinking about it. You shouldn't think about it. You're helping people if you really did it for the sake of Allah. And I think a lot of times you're like, you don't have language for what you're trying to communicate. You just feel uncomfortable and you just don't
Yeah.
know how to navigate it. But I think you know, in this long, crooked life of struggle education that I've been through in my life, I think I'm able to hopefully put language to it. Um, a lot of the times, it's not like you don't think you're a helpful person. The whole idea, the way I even look at my own struggle, people could look at my struggle like, oh, single mom, scheme, you know, oh my God, struggle, lived in a shelter, this, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Or I look at my struggles as Allah created those not as punishment in my life, but as an opportunity for people to connect with me. Because more than the money that might be helpful, what is harder than money is presence, right?
Mm.
And that's the cost of entry, you know? And so the person who's on the receiving end, they feel like they have to like, their point of entry is proving their pain. And then the other person's like, okay, improving your pain, then I can, it's very transactional. There's no
Yeah.
connection. It's very uncomfortable. It's weird. You feel weird. And in a way, it kind of showcases like you're better than the other person. You don't want to say, but that's basically how it's coming out. It loses the connection, you know?
Yeah.
I really believe like to get a repeat donor and you have to get them invested. And I really believe that people invest in people, not projects. Because
Mm.
the project was there because of a person. A person had an idea because of something. Why? What's the why? You know? So when you hear like the project, we have these surgeries and we want to use the female anatomy, V letter work, and it's so haram in the Muslim space, even though it's a medical term. But let's say restoring dignity and let's be halal about it. But all you did was package the pain and everything in the story, and then and no one's really invested, and you're frustrated because you're like, this is so important. And you look like you're the only one that's upset about it or the only one that cares. I'm like, other people would care if they really knew what it was about. To this
Yeah.
day, how many years later, I still think about that story. I still think about like every time
Yeah.
she has a campaign, I swear, even if it's $1, I'm like, I have to give. I can't, because I know to Allah, like, that dollar counts for him, you know? So somebody else, it might not count it. But to me, if it's like, oh, I have a $3, that's like a third of my wealth, right? See how we reframe things? We don't look at, oh, this person just gave $1 is nothing. We don't look at like that how much of their wealth was that? You know what I mean? Somebody could be a multi-billionaire and gives like $10,000, be like, oh my God, $10,000. But to him, it was like not even pennies. If you look at the like contrast to his wealth, right? So I personally think as a Muslim community, we're desensitized. Kind of like if you went on like a sugar-free or salt-free diet for 2 weeks, your tongue, when you start eating salty, like foods with salt in it or whatever, you're like, how did I eat
Mhm.
this?
Mhm.
So salty or so sweet,
Yeah.
you know, because your taste buds reset. And I think we personally need to have a reset in our dunya's huge value system. And we need to look at
Mhm.
things from a very different lens. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses stories of people, prophets. Why? Because that is what fosters change. Allah didn't just send Islam without a prophet. Why? Because it's not, he brought somebody from among them, okay? Somebody that they, Sadiq and Amin. They were already invested in him as a man because they already knew how eloquent his character, even they were at war with him, they still didn't trust anybody with their wealth to safekeep except him. I'm like, why
Mhm.
would you kill the very person who's like protecting your wealth? What's gonna happen after that? You know? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. But my point is, Allah didn't make Islam without the Prophet for a reason because it was people like really do invest in people. And so when they saw the humanity and the beauty of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, people invest in that. Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar Khattab, some of his craziest like people who actually fought him. Like Umar Khattab hated the Prophet. Became one of the 10, asking Aisha to be like buried next to him. You know, imagine that. That should tell you something. And so that's what, that's for me, the change that I want to do in this space, you know? It's to reframe. It's to humanize. It's not proving your poverty. Oh yeah, somebody says yes, there is a cat eligible, or whatever the case may be. It's so undignifying. And sometimes we look at how many people, we look at the quantity of people that we've helped, but we never look at the quality of the help, you know? That's why for me, like with her story, the Nigerian sister, I'm like, your help is so tangible and it's so qualitative in nature. It's empowering, you know? It's like, it's a solution that actually solves itself, you know? If we keep talking about the 1.2 million hampers that you were talking about, there's always going to be a need for 1.2 million hampers. We're going to keep handing out the fish. Why can't we talk about how we can actually help them how to fish? Because trust me, no one wants to know more than to know how to be able to empower themselves and dignify themselves, either through education or through employment. That's the best way you can actually like help. But that requires what? Your presence. It takes time, right? And that's something that unfortunately we don't solve problems at grassroots levels. We just solve them at surface level, like triage, like a band-aid. And we keep changing the band-aid. But it becomes transactional. But when we sit down and we sit with the person and we offer them our presence and our care and our intentionality, that person feels seen. They don't become a
Absolutely.
number or something you budget on a spreadsheet on Excel. They become, there's something
Actually,
in that conversation. I'm telling you, Sajjad, there's no money in the world. There's no money in the world to quantify that connection. I swear to
absolutely.
God. I swear. I'm telling you. To this day, like, I've had some of the best relationships with people because I was there with them in their moment of need. For me, I just looked
Yeah.
at it as like, okay, I helped with the story. It's not that serious. They're like, no, like, it's the fact that I could talk to you at any time, day or night. It's the fact that even if I came to you with my fears or my pain or you still took that call and you still met me with patience. You were gracious with me when I was freaking out about this problem or this problem. That's something that cannot be quantified. And I say this because that's how I would want our community to aspire to be there. And that's the kind of connection, because that moment's going to leave. It's going to come and go, right? It didn't last forever, but for that person, they're not going to forget it. And then they'll message you literally a few weeks later or a few months later, or some even a year later. Hey, I was just in Umrah and I want you to know I'm in front of the Kaaba right now, Shaimaa. And I just thought about that one time you helped me out in that one campaign. I know you don't think it's a big deal, but I just remembered you and your daughter and I want you to know I just made dua for you in front of the Kaaba. Do you
SubhanAllah.
think I knew that when I was going to do that campaign, that this was going to happen a year later? Like, that's the barakah. When you're saying the series, right? The Behind the Barakah series, that's what it is. It's the gift that
Yeah.
keeps on giving in the most minutiae way. I'm so grateful, honestly. Like, I used to, I used to always be made fun of being a bookworm and, I really was honestly. It was an addiction. I'm not gonna lie. But honestly, like you look at weird, and you're so fascinated with stories. Yes, the anatomy of a story, but not the anatomy of like a medical thing. But I honestly, sometimes, honestly, when I look back now, and I remember talking about one of my, like, this is probably one of my private jahs solo, but I'll share it because I think it's really important. I'm like, Allah, I'm so sorry. I didn't understand the magnitude of the superpower that you gave me. And that's storytelling. I used to
Mm.
always shame it, think like it wasn't valuable. I needed to be a doctor or something that society deemed worthy
Yeah,
to be
SubhanAllah.
able to be of service. But I'm like, subhanAllah, like, you actually gave me the gift all along and you were so patient. Like, you could have removed that from me because I was ungrateful or I didn't see the value in it, as much. But now I'm so grateful because it's actually how I connect with people. It's one of the most meaningful relationships you can ever have, honest to God. There's no price tag to that. And if you're able to, and that's what if that's why I look at myself like a matchmaker. I don't really look at myself like as a fundraiser. Like honestly, I feel like I'm like a buttercup matchmaker. Like here, the donor and like the CC. So because it's a beautiful relationship. Wallahi, I'm telling you, it's something that's so meaningful, and people get invested in the stories. That's why, like, you look at Humans of New York, you look at MD
Mm.
Motivator online. Why are they
Yeah.
so successful? Literally, because they humanize people in a world where we're just numbers and statistics and
Yeah.
moving along. We pause, and that moment, they didn't use our attention to just get their marketing numbers. They turn our
Absolutely.
attention into presence.
Yeah,
And
SubhanAllah.
that is hard to do in a very fast track ADHD like induced world.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's
Absolutely.
in that moment you made me pause. You made me stop scrolling, right? And I paused and I was present and I felt connected to this person, even though it's just on a screen, you know? And you brought their story to life. It brought emotions out of me. It made me reflect about things. It might have brought up certain things in my life that I need to sit down and think about. Many times I sit with people that I've done campaigns with and I think about, like, you changed my life. Like, honestly, they say you changed your life. I'm like, oh, well, you changed my life. I'm here thinking like, subhanAllah, like this, I never would have imagined this. You're part of like, it's so amazing. I can't put that into words. Honestly, it's so
Yeah.
meaningful and there's no price tag in the world. Like, that's why I do this, Jack. Honestly, like, it's to be of khidmah, to be of service is really about letting yourself go, letting God do his thing. And then you just sit and be present in that moment and ask Allah, what are you asking of me now? You put this person in my life. What is the ask? Because I don't know how to solve this. And it's
Yeah.
really about allowing Allah to be part of that conversation. And that removes the transactionality of it. And that's where you have that presence, that khushu', the connection. You're thinking back to Allah. Is this the right way? Is this the right strategy? Let me talk to this person. And when you put all that together, it creates something so meaningful and so beautiful, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And may Allah
mm,
continue to put barakah in everything that you're doing, Shema, and
no, alhamdulillah.
allow you to create such a bigger impact, inshallah, with all the storytelling and all the campaigns that you're touching on.
No, I appreciate it.
Uh,
Okay.
Shema, I know I'm looking at the time, and mashallah, we're almost at the hour. I
Yeah.
already have I still have like so many questions I wanted to get through. Uh, but one thing I did want to touch base upon is I know you had mentioned earlier on in our conversations about you wanting to be a writer
hmm
to be able to uplift Muslim women.
hmm
Tell me a little bit about that. How's that coming along?
It's coming along. Okay. So twofold. Number one, I'm pursuing my degree in creative writing in English with two minors in marketing and entrepreneurship. And I'm inshallah about to wrap it up very soon. Um,
Inshallah.
so that's one way. But I have also like done developments and editing with other people's work. One of my friends, she actually ended up publishing two children's books. I was involved in that process initially as well too. And alhamdulillah, like I'm really grateful for that as well. But yeah, it's coming along. But I would say, um, in a way that I never imagined, which segues into the second point. So in our conversation, I told you this before, but maybe I could share this with with the audience.
Of course.
Um, so I got into LaunchGood, uh, Ramadan was a 10-week fellowship, right? And to understand the magnitude of Ramadan, how impactful it was for me, you have to understand like the year before. Okay. And the year before, I was in a situation in Ramadan. I was really struggling. I was going through a really difficult time. My car was beyond broken down, and it was like an extreme amount of money to get it repaired. And subhanAllah, like it was two girls, okay, that I was developmentally editing their work and supporting them in their work without a fee. I remember my mom telling me, like, don't tell me you're doing it for free again. I'm like, no, I had to. I can't gatekeep knowledge. I honestly, I seriously can't because I know what it's like to just not be able to get into the industry because you don't have X amount of dollars to afford a coach to be able
Yeah.
to like, whatever the case may be. So I was like, for me, I just told them like, listen, as long as you show up, you do your best and you end up writing this book, whatever, that may be, maybe mention me in the acknowledgement so I have some kind of portfolio I can refer to. But I'm like, if you do, if you don't, it's okay, whatever. But like, my thing is, I want you to be successful. And subhanAllah, like those two people became the ones that fundraised behind my back at a group that we were
Mm.
a part of. And they helped me not only fix my car, but pay off also my car too. And I can
Oh,
explain to you with this crazy Ramadan miracle. Okay. I'm so emotional. And also I had a lot of shame. I was like, oh my God, I want to like, cause some people are like, oh, why can't you just take the bus? My kid was always sick. And when you live in Calgary, like you can't go like middle of the night with like your kid stuck in the snow with a stroller. Like it's so hard,
yeah.
especially when it's just so difficult. Like that's another story for another time. But my point is, there are people who are saying shameful comments, and then there were people who were like, "This is beautiful." And what was more beautiful than that, I remember, was the du'as. They kept messaging like, "Hey Matt, I'm
Mm.
making that for your daughter. This and this. Last 10 nights." The story is more emotional than that. I'm giving you just the story. I'm not giving you the story within the story, but just because I know time. And I remember saying to Allah, "Allah, please, like, okay, we're circling back, same dua, okay. I appreciate you, coming through for me, bringing me community, bringing me people." I really want to pay this forward, So if you can, make that publishing dream, happen a little sooner, and then I become ballin', maybe become a multi-millionaire, and I can be out here making it rain for everybody. Great, This would be fantastic, SubhanAllah. I can tell you right now, confidently, 4 years later, I'm not a multi-millionaire publisher yet. Okay, but Allah Ta'ala has a very funny way of answering du'as, and it's very meaningful.
Absolutely.
And that's where, like, enter the fellowship with LaunchGood. I was very, like, shy about fundraising as well. I was a little bit hesitant, but it was, again, through the uncovering the story and the story that I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, what if we didn't make it about just the money and, like, we're making it, like, so shameful and begging, oh, please, we're dying, or whatever, right? What if we made it empowering?
Mm.
And I started looking at, like, each campaign, like I'm a index fund manager for my akhira and I'm diversifying my portfolio. No, that's kind of how I look at it.
Absolutely.
No, but
Absolutely.
seriously, everybody's thinking about how they're going to raise their money for this dunya, but it's not going to go with you in your akhira, I promise you. The world ends with
Wow.
you being 6 feet under and your akhira starts at that point. But I think a lot of times we need to think about, especially if you know how people are so ashamed of like raising money for anything, even yourself, if you die, like you gotta get yourself covered. You know what I mean? So you gotta need to start investing from now and look at your like akhira portfolio and start thinking, how am I gonna diversify that? And what am I gonna show Allah? Like it doesn't have to be public to anybody. It could just be private to yourself. But it's very important. If you start framing it from that way, you can be very strategic with it. There's all these strategies and master classes about how to use, how to invest in whatever stock. Ask yourself, what
Mm.
stocks are you investing in your akhira? Because they're gonna become the mountains or the ashes that you're going to be looking at, right? So, when I started seeing the framing, my perception changed and I started looking at the stories, I was like, wow, it feels like I'm publishing a story, a nonfiction piece instantly. Because in publishing, there's like a turnaround. It's like 18 months long, sometimes two
Yeah.
years before it sees the
Yeah.
light of day. Okay. And at that point, you've seen that story like 10,000 times. You're sick of it. Okay. If you've ever edited something for that long, trust me, you'll be like, I'm sick of it. I can't even look at it. Just get it out, But subhanAllah with like LG, I'm like, it's instant. It's in real time. The stakes are so much higher, of course. and a lot riskier. I'm like, it's impactful. And if you start looking at
Yeah.
yourself like you're a character in this person's story, and Allah just brought you randomly into this life, what chapter? How are you going to write that chapter? You know? Because if you start looking at it, like you're just there for a chapter. How meaningful will you show up? Right? Your moment, how are you going to be there? Show up fully, right? Show up fully. And so that's how it started, right? So I was like, okay, this is so beautiful. The 10-week fellowship ended, but I wasn't done because I was like, yo, I love this, but there wasn't an opening at that time for something a bit more evergreen. So I was like, okay, I kept like looking at the time, but there wasn't something evergreen. And so I was like, man, but I really like this. This was such a meaningful experience. I don't want this to end. So it just starts to trickle. A story here, a story there. Somebody has this issue, somebody has that issue in this place, in that place. And then I started seeing things even on Instagram through friends. And I'm like, oh, I don't know this person, but I know someone who knows them. Maybe I can
Mm,
help. I can notice. And it just started being small, incremental
yeah.
stories that were getting published or a part of. And some that were on LaunchGood. Okay. Some
Yeah.
were on LaunchGood. Some were on GoFundMe. Only one, only one because of the rules when it comes to like raising funds, when it comes to like, Lebanon or whatever, they have very like stringent rules. And it was a baby that like had to have like a heart surgery. She was born. She did die in the end, Allah yarhamha, after a few months, but her family did get to have her for a few months. And that was a painful story, but I'm just grateful, alhamdulillah, the impact that did as well. But for the most part, I was also involved in like other people, even consulting on their own fundraisers and stuff behind the scenes. But subhanAllah, it was something that I honestly can't tell you, like, it just brings me so much joy. It brings me so much joy to tell somebody, understand their story, and see how we can like leverage that in a way that's dignifiable and empowering. And
Absolutely.
people are going to be connected and they're going to feel good about giving, you know? That's
Yeah.
why I look at it as a gift. I spell it as GIFT, like, but with between the F, instead of the F, I put the VE. So it's like gift. Get it? So, cause like play on word. But that's how I look at it. Cause it's a gift that gives gift. Anyways, you're giving a gift. Anyway, I'll
Absolutely.
stop. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I
And
digress.
I
Yeah,
think
go
the
ahead.
beautiful thing too is just like, like we often, so many times in life, we think this is the goalpost.
Yeah.
This is what we want to accomplish. Oh, I want to be a writer and we're going to make
Yeah.
millions inshallah so that I can give to
Yeah.
charity.
Exactly.
Right. But it's like Allah takes us in the best of ways. Allah
It
knows what
does.
your superpower
Hmm.
is through storytelling.
Hmm.
And not just storytelling in the sense where it comes in books a year later, two
Hmm.
years later, but it's no real time
Hmm.
storytelling.
And it is
Storytelling,
publishing. It did
and it's
happen.
being published, it's
It
on the web, and it's
exactly.
creating an impact.
Exactly.
And the impact that it's creating is also like, it's also a great source of sadaqah jariyah,
And also creating connection.
creating connection.
And then those people were inspired. They're like, I want to do this too. Because I
Yeah.
was so dignified in that vulnerable situation. And it was such a beautiful experience for me. I want to give it to somebody else. I want to tell other people this is how dignified I felt in the process and not to be afraid of it. And it's dismantling those narratives. A lot of
Mm,
the campaigns I've done were referrals by other
mm,
people. And then they're having the conversation. They're like, don't be afraid, don't be ashamed, whatever. Just talk
mm,
to
yeah.
Shaimaa. You know, it's unraveling that narrative subconsciously.
Yeah.
So it's more
Absolutely.
powerful than me ever throwing $1 million if I was a multimillionaire publishing company, because in return, Allah did allow me to publish stories, I guess, in his publishing house, I guess you could say. And in the end, it formed connections. And in the end,
Absolutely.
the impact, yeah, we could look at metrics and say it was over 1 million. It was, alhamdulillah, and it's all from Allah. Um, but the dua was answered in a very different way that I would have ever imagined. And
Yeah.
in so much more, like it's something I can't even quantify because what I gained out of it was a community of people that, you know, there's a connection that happens when something really tragic happens or something really bad happens or something that's really, and you're connected with somebody in that moment. There's something there that I can't explain it. It's like imprint, you know?
Yeah. SubhanAllah.
And yeah, and then yeah, then they're saying, I didn't know how dignifying this was. I'm also dealing with the challenges of family and friends,
Mm,
and they're saying, oh, we can solve our own problems. This is all right. And later on saying, hey, this impact was so meaningful.
yeah.
I want to do what you're doing. This is so
Yeah.
cool because it is cool, you know? if you're doing it right and you kick shame in the curb and you humanize the interaction and you're there and you're present and you show up, that's what money can't buy is your presence. Honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Hmm.
And as we're kind of wrapping up, Shema, I think one of the most beautiful points that you mentioned, and I wrote this down too, is that it's connection over ask.
Oh, yeah.
If you just reflect back even on our tradition, the beautiful Islam that we have, the Quran, the stories that we hear, the Hadith,
Hmm.
they're stories. They're not facts and figures. We don't see a bar graph.
We don't. We don't.
we don't see charts,
No.
right? But we hear of all these stories. We hear the story of Sayyidina Ibrahim. We hear the
Yeah.
story of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We hear the stories of his struggle. We hear the stories of Ta'if, right? We hear the story of Isra al-Mi'raj,
Mhm.
right? It's the stories that bring connection,
It's in the
right? And I think
Quran
that's
about the verse. وَقْصَصِ الْقَصَصَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Why?
that's,
Because stories is how we connect. I really believe it's a human currency. Like it's
yeah,
how we connect. Like
absolutely,
money is just something that represents value. But
yeah,
what connects a person is vulnerability. It's knowing that you don't have it all figured out. Like a
yeah,
lot of times I enter the conversation, I'm like straight up, and it's even in sales, and it's honestly it has yet to fail me. Maybe one or two people, sure, okay, but honestly, I find that people usually appreciate that in more circle. You know what? I don't
yeah,
know the answer to this, but how about today we're both gonna learn something today? You know,
absolutely,
being able to just say, I don't know how this is all going to work out, but what I can guarantee, or what at least I can promise you from my side, is I can show up and be there 110.
absolutely, absolutely. With that, Shema, it was such a wonderful time connecting with you. MashaAllah, may Allah put barakah and again everything that you're doing and allow your work to scale, inshallah, in the most beautiful of ways, the most ihsani of ways, inshallah. And again, this is going all back to your grandmother. This is the legacy that this is how she visioned. This is how her inspiration. And you're honoring that legacy, inshallah. And again, may all this go back to as a sadaqah jariyah for your mom, inshallah, for your grandmother, and inshallah, may Allah continue to put barakah in everything that you're doing,
Even for
inshallah.
you as well, Sajad, I think what you're doing is really amazing. Honestly, I'm very grateful that you hosted me today.
Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair. Like, because what you did is amplify your voice, right? That may have been just fall through the cracks, whatever the case may be. But my hope is, I want other people to know that no matter what struggles you're going through in life, no matter what difficulty, your your value and how you help doesn't have to be measured only by dollars. It could be even your
Yeah.
time, your presence, your skill. Those are things that Allah values. And it makes me think about how like the most beloved deeds to Allah are the small but consistent ones. So just because other people
Mm.
may not, dunya might not value it, but dunya is not even worth a five of mosquito. Allah tells us that, you know? So like in the Quran, so I think a lot of the times, even just renewing your intention, and I say this to myself first before anybody else, just renew your intention. Even, ya Allah, I wake up for your sake. I'm going to take care of my family. All of this is sadaqah jariyah. You know, a good word to somebody, a smile on someone's face, assuming good of others. Like, just embodying
Yeah.
those actions every day is going to be your sadaqah jariyah as well, too. And should the opportunity present itself, even if somebody is struggling, even if you think you don't have, ask yourself and ask Allah, be like, Ya Allah, I think I don't have because I feel like it should be solved with this, but maybe there's something else that I
Mm.
could solve it with that isn't monetary,
Mhm.
you know? And I think that's the thing
Yeah.
that sometimes Allah doesn't give you what you think you need. Sorry, what you want. He gives you what you actually need, which is so much grander. So
Exactly.
what I thought I wanted was a multi-million dollar publication house, that could be like out here balling, et cetera, et cetera. But what I really, what I really needed was something deeper, you know? SubhanAllah. So yeah,
Yeah.
jazakallah khair for your
Allah.
time. I appreciate what you're doing. I think we're pretty much doing the same thing that I'm doing, just showcasing stories and getting people
Alhamdulillah.
to connect to causes. That's really meaningful. Ask Allah subhanahu to put tremendous barakah in everything that you do. So just thank you so much for your time
Ameen.
and your platform.
No, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Inshallah. Inshallah. This is wonderful. And we're going to have more
Yeah.
conversations. And again, it's beautiful work that you're doing. And may Allah continue to
I mean,
scale it and put more beauty in it and allow it to grow, inshallah, beyond your wildest imaginations,
thank you,
inshallah.
thank you.
All right, Shaima.
For
With that,
sure.
inshallah, we'll
For
be
sure.
in
Take
touch.
care.
Thank
Assalamu
you
alaikum.
guys.